you fall asleep. They get you.
Parasites.
Run, critters.
That's it, Shazam. Pop goes the weasel. Pop goes the weasel.
Maybe it almost happens to our Kevin.
Yeah, he's got to stay away.
You want to know why? Because they are mainstream, baby.
You've already done that bit.
What?
You've already done that bit.
Etc., etc. Why? Because
End of example 1. That's an excerpt from a movie called Slipstream by Anthony Hopkins. Our next example is a performance online of Ravel's Le Espagnol, which translates into English as Spanish Hours. But first, we're going to listen to a record of it in which, it's my opinion, the metronome part is not as audible as it should be. It's audible, but it's very faint, which may be what's called for in the score, I don't know. Now we switch to the online version of it. That seems a tad louder to me. I like the staging very much too. This is György Ligetti's Poème Symphonique for 100 metronomes. I forgot to tell the story about my friend, the classical pianist Amy Plamondon. who in the 1970s or early 1980s went to Congress, I believe it may have been, with a metronome in her purse. And while she was waiting in line to get into Congress as a spectator, the metronome came unstuck in her purse and it started to tick. So she was taken aside and her purse was emptied out, and she was interrogated about what this object was because the security people didn't recognize it as a metronome, and because it had been ticking, they thought it might be a bomb.
Depuis sa création aux Pays-Bas en 1963, Poème symphonique pour son métronome a été très rarement joué en public. Une mise en place scénographique compliquée, une préparation manuelle minutieuse, le recours obligé à une dizaine de personnes pour actionner de façon plus ou moins synchronisée les sons métronomes limite toute volonté de représentation.
That seems to be a more rigorously and mechanically presented version of it than the other version that I'd previously seen, in which, as I recall, the metronomes were scattered around on the floor and perhaps one person ran around activating them so that they didn't start in as synchronized a fashion as this one did. I think the other version is perhaps more Fluxus-like, or more of a realization in the way that it may have happened at an original Fluxus presentation. Now, it's my understanding that George Maciunas told Ligeti that he really needed him to be a part of Fluxus, and Ligeti then created this piece with that in mind. On Wikipedia, I looked up things that might use metronomes as musical instruments, and one of the things is the song Farewell to Cheyenne by Ennio Morricone as a part of the movie entitled Once Upon a Time in the West. And the claim on Wikipedia is made that the piece uses slowed down metronome as the sort of clip-clop ticking sound that's in it. I went through the movie, and the theme song for Cheyenne appears many times whenever Cheyenne appears. I figured that the one that's called Farewell Cheyenne is the one where Cheyenne dies, his last scene, if I remember correctly, in the movie. In the movie, it doesn't sound to me like it's metronome. Then I downloaded a couple of versions from online that seemed to sound more like metronome. So this is one of the ones that I picked that seems to me sounds more like metronome. I'll play this first, and then I'll show the relevant excerpt from the movie. But even then, that da-da sounds more like another piece of percussion. Something used to resemble horse hooves, clip-clopping of horse hooves. Could just be wood blocks. Or I think that traditionally in sound effects, hollowed out coconut shells are sometimes used. So now I'll switch to a VHS version of Once Upon a Time in the West. That was Cheyenne, that was just there with the beard. The repeating part, the rhythm appears to be being played by banjo. So it sounds even less like a metronome than the last version did. Since I'm the only person here, this is 70. That's the first one where no one has shown up other than myself. Duke Ellington's Uptown, a recording that I like very much, has Louis Bellson on drums. And the controversial Suite Part 2 has a metronome or ticking clock simulation. still had Michael Snow's Musics for Piano, Whistling, Microphone, and Tape Recorders piece entitled Left Right. I love this record. Let's skip ahead a little bit.